Hello, the house. It is the 15th of June and we are in the middle of a heat wave. So we're also really busy here at the farm because today and tomorrow are the days that Fabrizio does his annual wildflower meadow workshops. The meadow is looking amazing. I must try and make a film for you about it. And we always do garden tours at the same time because people like to see the meadow as well as the rest of the farm. So it is the evening after a very hot day. I've been waiting. It is 20 to 7 and it is at last cool enough to cut. It is still, let me tell you, in here, it is 73 degrees if you go for Fahrenheit in the studio, which is 23 in the studio. So it's still quite hot outside. But I need to cut because of timings. So I've got a bit of a list. Total of 555 stems. And I thought it'd be interesting to come with me if you wanted to cut this lot. Because there are lots of different kinds of ways that you can be a flower farmer. And one of the ways is if you're cutting for other florists. And I'm going out now to cut a big order for a wedding this weekend coming up. Which has been ordered as wholesale by a neighbour of mine who's a florist, a studio florist. And I thought you might be interested in seeing how we do it. Anyway, if you enjoy, please subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon and we'll tell you when we've got new clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks I give you are useful, you can always buy me a coffee and the link is in the blurb to all my clips. Come on, let's get going. 555 stems. With filming and chat and things, I reckon we'll be done in 2 hours. So 8:45, possibly 9 o'clock. Let's get going. Right, accompanied with my trusty trolley with clean buckets full of clean water and my trusty snips. These are Newbery snips. Off we go. There is the garden. And you can always tell where I am. You listen for the rattle of the trolley. Now you might think I'd go to the tunnel last because it's hot, but actually the hedge to the west side of this is shading it out, which means that it is actually relatively cold. So I need 20 stems of white lavatoria, 100 plus stems of amimagus, and 50 sweet peas. Let's get going. The sweet peas are finally getting into their stride and my client is looking for 50 pale pink and white. I think we can manage that. I think if you're cutting for wholesale, be generous, cut well. This is 100 stems of amimagus and each stem has got side shoots and it's generous. So cut well, but charge properly. And then you can afford to be generous and your client will be happy with the product and come back for more. If you charge cheaply, you'll resent your client because and cut shorter and meaner stems, and then your client won't come back. That's what I think. Now I'm having to be a little bit careful because I'm cutting for two different orders. One is my wholesale order to be collected tomorrow by the florist. And the other 220 stems are for my work that I've got to do tomorrow morning. So I'm having to keep my buckets a bit separate. So rather than carry on stuffing the buckets full, I'm going to take them back into the studio, put them somewhere cool, and I'll end up using more buckets, but I can split up the work. So it takes a little bit longer, but that's the thing. I think it's worth thinking, what kind of a flower farmer are you? I have, in the past, always been a person who grows bouquets. I've been my client, but increasingly, local studio florists are coming to me because they love the quality of my work and they love what I grow. And so I'm doing a bit more wholesale. It's a brain ache thing that I have to learn to manage because it's a very different approach. So when you think, shall I be a flower farmer? What kind of a flower farmer would you be? Excuse me. I have colleagues who grow all edible flowers, for example, and other colleagues who grow flowers just for making cosmetics or for skincare, or for my colleague Saskia makes flower essences. Lots of different ways to do this. It's much cooler now outside in the yard, so I'm just going to keep them out here, even though there's still a little bit of sunlight. I'm going to let them stay outside in the cool. It's hotter in the studio than it is out here. So there's the wholesale order. There's the order for my own work. Gotta keep them separate. Now I'm up here with the roses. I've got 120 to cut for my client, 40 for me. Now it's really important to remember that the roses I'm cutting for my client are for Saturday's wedding. It is Wednesday evening. So this rose, for example, is too blown. But this rose, still in relatively tight bud, will be out on Saturday. So sometimes I will be pinching out, for example, a blown rose, but cutting deep into the plant to give a long stem of 3 buds to my client. It's really worth judging carefully. These 2 will be perfect for Saturday. This one down here, perfect for Saturday. But quite a lot of these are too blown for using in floristry. Lovely, but too blown. So there are 30 stems of Gentle Hermione. If any of they should be just fine for Saturday. If any of them are blown, they've all got side shoots, so side buds, and the side buds will come out if any blown roses are cut out. I quite like to give my clients a bit of extra stem because, you know, again, I charge properly, and so I don't mind being generous. This is 30 stems per bucket. Normally I would put 50 stems of anything in a bucket, but I don't want to squash these roses. They're valuable. And so there are going to be 4 buckets of roses for my client and 2 for me. And then we may have to go around again. On we go. Oh, by the way, I have, there's my falling down barn behind me. I have a rose workshop coming on soon online. You can book a place, or maybe it's sold out, but I might run another one, and you can book a place, and if it's an inconvenient time, we will send you the recording afterwards, but I think I'm gonna have to run another one about how we grow roses, how we cut them, how we condition them, and how we treat them. They do well for us. And the cutting and conditioning demo I did last week is available to order now online if you'd like to download it. If you couldn't come then, but you're still interested in how we cut and condition, then that demo is available on my website to order. So help yourself. Roses are expensive to buy in shops, not only because they're beautiful and scented and all the lovely things that roses are, but they take for blimming ever to cut. So if something takes 4 or 5 times as long to cut as any other stem, it should cost 4 or 5 times as much money because it's time consuming. Goodness, but the light is very beautiful at this time of night, is it not? The roses seem to gleam in the gloaming. Now I'm cutting a personal favourite, Woollerton Old Hall, for the work I'm doing tomorrow. Very, very important to remember to shut the gate to keep the deer out. They are marauding. Good night, beautiful patch. See you tomorrow. So I'm running late, it's 9:20, and I still have 20 stems of Astrantia to get, but nearly done. That's a nice looking trolley, don't you think? So there we have it. My wholesale cut on the right. On this side, that's the wholesale. And this is for my work tomorrow here. I hope I've got the right stem count. It's really tough cutting two. I can cut for myself really easily because I do it all the time, but cutting for myself and cutting a commission for a wholesale clip is a completely different sort of headspace. Anyway, I think I've got everything that's been ordered, and I've given my client as long stem length as I can. I've been generous and I have charged properly so that I don't mind the fact that I've been generous, and I hope that the client likes the work and will come back for more. If you could smell these roses and the sweet peas, the rose mint sweet pea combo is something else. And of course they're Philadelphus as well, so it's really quite a thing. And then of course there are sweet peas and roses for my work tomorrow. So happy days. So there are lots and lots of different kinds of flower farmers that you could be. And I think over the summer I might consider a few different ways. In the UK, it is British Flowers Week this week. The cut flower market has improved enormously for the small artisan grower, because the cost of importing flowers after Brexit and a pandemic, and with war and oil prices going through the roof, has made us, we small artisan growers growing very, very good quality flowers for local market, we are suddenly much more interesting to our local florists. And so I can see myself in the next year or so becoming someone who does more wholesale. And of course I'll still always do bouquet work because I love doing bouquet work. It gives me such pleasure. But actually the market, this is going to be a good way to make a living going forward. So think about it. If you're a wholesale grower, are you going to be a wholesale grower or are you going to grow bouquets? I historically have grown bouquets. My garden is set up for growing bouquets. I may find that I keep only the fiddly stuff just for me, for my bouquet work. And I find going forward that I grow more and more high value stems that I can sell to my local florists who will be glad of them, because it's hard to import. But they must be very high quality. They must be cut at the optimum moment. If I don't use flower food, I don't use any chemicals. I don't use anything, any flower preservative. I need to tell my client that. And there might be bugs, because it is more important that the bugs are there than that I have a perfect rose with no bugs on it. So all of that stuff, but I need to manage my customers' expectations. It's really important they understand. I need to make sure that they understand if my flowers work differently, if they need to work with them a little differently from how they're used to. I need to make sure they know that. Because otherwise, if I do a bad job, then I give all of my colleague growers, all the other artisan growers around me, will get a bad reputation on the back of my bad reputation, because the customers I'm selling to will say to each other, nah, British flowers are rubbish. Field-grown flowers with no chemicals are rubbish. And it's really important, therefore, that I do a really super good job, so that people understand that actually what we do is high end. Anyway, it's 9:30, so I overran, but I've had a nice time playing with my dahlias and pootling about at the same time. So now I'm allowed to go and have some supper and perhaps a sneaky glass of wine. See you later. Right, it's the following morning, and I expect you'll be glad to see I've had a hair wash and a clean shirt, because sometimes you must. And there's one more thing that I wanted to say. It's sort of bothering me in the night, and this is what happens when you're making films while you're actually doing your job. You make the film to your best of ability, and then you forget to say the actual really important thing. The reason cutting for wholesale is more complicated for me than cutting for my retail bouquets is that for my retail bouquets, I know the stem count and I can cut a look. That's what my customers are asking for. They're asking for a look. With wholesale, my customer is asking for 30 stems of this, 20 stems of that, 15 stems of the other thing, which amazingly slows you down. I'm used to just cutting in 50s, put them in the bucket, done. Having to stop and count all the time for a specific order is fiddly. It's fiddly. So, you know, businesses never stay the same. They shouldn't stay the same. Small artisan businesses particularly should evolve all the time to suit the market and to keep the person who's running the business interested. So it's an interesting process. I'm doing it all again tonight. I wonder if they'll be faster. Anyway, thanks for coming along, and I will see you soon. At least the flowers are looking lovely. Lovely.